Hey everybody, Phil here, coming to you from Japan again. Little quick chat about this Covid-19 coronavirus thing you might have heard about. Well, we're in day 2 of the Tokyo lockdown, or the voluntary lockdown, which didn't go so well yesterday, as you may have seen from the video and so on. And last night, some restaurants were open in Tokyo, and there were less people, but from what I see, it was life as normal. But today, we had a freak snowstorm. Even up here in Tohoku, we had a little bit of snow, and down in Tokyo, they had quite a bit of snow, which is interesting because you'd think it would be the other way around because we're further north, but they had this snowstorm that put about 1 to 2 centimeters of snow on the ground. It's been 32 years since more than a centimeter of snow has fallen at this time of year. So that kept a lot of people inside and maybe helped out with this voluntary lockdown thing. That being said, of course, we still had 68 new cases. I think today, again, I'm just totally confused as to which numbers I should be looking at, but let's say that in the last 24 hours or so, we've had about 100 cases of positive testing. Now, there's some people who've said that it's possible that the numbers are all messed up, and I'm going to get to all that in a second. But the other news is because this voluntary lockdown is not going so well, there's a rumor, not that I like to spread rumors, but this one's pretty credible, that Prime Minister Abe is going to announce an emergency, a national emergency, and as Donald Trump said, 2 very big words. And with the declaration of a national emergency, that means they can have a mandatory lockdown, and they're going to do that supposedly only in the larger cities. And this is the part I love. This is the part so Japanese, that the recommendation is a 2-week lockdown. But they're going to do a 3-week lockdown because they need an extra week to fill in all the paperwork afterwards. If you've ever been to Japan, or especially, lived in Japan, you know that the paperwork is incredible, and I literally mean paperwork. I don't mean people typing on their computer. Japan, they like paper and faxes. This is the world we live in over here. So, yes, a potential 3-week lockdown in the major metropolitan areas of Tokyo, Osaka, and surrounding areas where we're having the vast majority of those cases. So, some of the things I saw, but the fails on this weekend's lockdown in Tokyo was, of course, if you know anything about Japanese culture, you know that we have these things over here called idols, and I don't mean like Buddha. I mean predominantly teenage girls dressed scantily for middle-aged men to oogle at. And idol events, which are meet and greets with idols, and the idols will lip-sync to some songs, and then, whatever they do after that, not having seen one myself, unfortunately. But some idol events still went forward this weekend in Tokyo, which is incredible to me. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. But there's this interesting summary on one of the COVID-19 sites where they talk about the Japan, how to make sense of Japan and the numbers and how things are different here. And Japan is just, I don't know if it's malicious or whatever it is, but the dissemination of disinformation is incredible here. We saw it heavily under the Fukushima disaster, and it's happening again now. The government themselves release 2 numbers of tests every day. And the numbers are vastly different, almost double. And some people say, well, one of them is the number of tests and one of them is the number of people tested. So maybe they were double testing people or all the rest of this stuff. In other words, the data is so confusing that you can't accurately report. And it's business as usual here because, you know, they have a pneumonia report. Japan has a lot of older people. A lot of older people get pneumonia, so they keep pretty good statistics on how many people have died from pneumonia. And some people are asking, well, could you release those numbers because then we can see if there's a change? And they said, no, we release those numbers every 3 years. We're not changing anything. In about a year and a half, we'll release those numbers and we can see if there's been an increase in pneumonia deaths, which would indicate the severity of the coronavirus in non-diagnosed cases. But it's almost like they don't want you to know. I don't understand it. And so, yeah, the number's up. I'm just going to take this screenshot because, you know, what always happens is by the time I get around to taking the screenshot after I've done the video, the number's gone up. So right now it's on this site that I'm looking at, which is, if I look at the same site all the time, I figure that's a pretty good barometer. It says 2,533, up 96 from yesterday of diagnoses. They did about 1,500 tests, which is down from yesterday. Yeah, it's the weekend. I mean, you know, you don't test on the weekend. No deaths, it seems, today. So of the 96 that it's gone up, 68 of those in Tokyo. So we're seeing just so significant. I mean, Tokyo has about 400, according to this, 430 cases. Osaka, the second city of Japan, has only 191, less than half. And Hokkaido had a big outbreak. I can't remember the reason for that, but they have 175. But, you know, it really drops off after that. So it's very, very concentrated in Tokyo. Again, this points to the fact that Japanese don't travel so much within the country. So we're not really seeing, you have this Tokyo area with Tokyo, Saitama, and so on like that. You have the cases. You look at America, and America is a fascinating example that how the cases got all over the country, and that's because people travel so much. You know, they fly all over. Oh, we got cheap flights, so we're just going to fly and just take this disease wherever we can. That must be the only reason why America's spread of the disease is quite so different than Japan's. But, you know, it's not just those countries. I have some other notes here that I quickly want to get down to. There's other countries to watch. And if you look at the sites that do the statistics of everybody, and you sort those in an interesting way, there's kind of two groups. There's this kind of forgotten group in Europe. Switzerland, holy cow, they've got a lot. I mean, let me see if I can find the actual number here. And, you know, Switzerland, tiny country, I mean, it's like this big, you know, but wow, they've got a lot of cases. God, this is scintillating video to watch, isn't it? Me searching the internet. But Switzerland is in the, like, let's say the top 10 with number of cases. And the number that I always look at is not the number of cases, but the total number of cases per million people. And Switzerland has right now 1,626 cases per million, with you know, 14,000 cases. Incredible that a country the size of Switzerland has that many cases. Luxembourg as well. Luxembourg I point out because Luxembourg has more cases than Japan. And I imagine that that's because they're testing more. Luxembourg's cases per million is almost 3,000 cases per million population. So, and what was the other one? San Marino, I think, is crazy. We have Vatican City at the top, but I mean, what? How many people live in Vatican City? But you'd think they would have been spared. But San Marino, 6,600 cases per million people, which is pretty amazing. My old stomping grounds of Gibraltar also up there in the top 10. So you have those ones, the kind of forgotten places in Europe that are really being hit, and we're not talking about maybe just because they don't have the population, but Switzerland is fascinating. I mean, that's the headquarters of the World Health Organization. We're headquarters of UN. Does that have anything to do with it? Gosh, I don't know. And then the other two that I think about, because this is going to be a real flag about how serious this gets around the world, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the rest of the world, but sometimes I can't help it. If you look at Nigeria and Uganda. Now, Uganda is particularly worrying. Nigeria, they only have about 100 cases, which is not so many per million when you consider the tons of people they've got, but there is a slow spread there. And if it gets out in Uganda, Nigeria, and can't be controlled, then you've got a huge crisis that the rest of the world is going to have to deal with financially. But Uganda, the reason I find Uganda interesting, again, you're looking at a country with a tight grip on the media and not the greatest healthcare services in the world. But a week ago, they had 1 case. Now they have 30 cases. So, and you can bet that they're not testing very much. So I think that strip across the middle of Africa, we're looking at a huge crisis, another huge crisis there that will probably swell in about 2 months or 3 months. Well, this one was not a very happy one, unlike my other videos about the coronavirus. So that's the latest about what's happening in Japan. I think we're going to look out for Abe's national emergency declaration in the next few days if that happens, and then life will change in the big cities. Not for me. I live up here. I mean, my town has 44,000 people. We're on the edge of a big town, which is 1.2 million, but so far we only have 2 cases in the whole province. So there you go. Hope things are good where you are, and thanks for watching. I'm going to say what everybody on YouTube says, like and subscribe. But, whatever. If you felt this was interesting, you can do that. I'm still going to make them. We'll see you tomorrow.